Let's talk about Nova. Previously, she's been a weird and esoteric frame, utilizing strength in unusual ways. While many mained her, many forgot her, and even more forgot the planet she comes from. Hell, it's not even a planet. She's far from Europa, a moon of Jupiter. With the rework so suddenly sprung upon her, I'll show you what Nova is capable of now, and how it is a vast improvement. I'm the Engineer. Let's solve a practical problem. Farming Nova is very easy. Her normal version can be obtained from defeating the Raptors repeatedly on Europa, and her main blueprint can be bought from the market for credits. Alternatively, you can pick her up from the circuit every few weeks when she's in rotation. Her Prime frame can be traded between players or nabbed from Prime Resurgence from time to time, like right now. Once obtained, you'll find she has the usual spread of a passive and 4 abilities. Nova's passive has been remade into a sustain passive, giving an increased chance for sped up enemies to drop energy orbs and slowed down enemies to drop health orbs. This notably only interacts natively with Nova's 4, as it's the only ability she comes with which provides a speed or slow effect to enemies. Other speed or slow effects also trigger this passive, just not as part of Nova's normal kit. Her 1 is Nullstar, surrounding herself with explosive particles to ward off incoming damage and strike her foes. Nearby enemies will periodically be staggered and damaged by a particle, removing it from Nova. Previously, this ability provided a flat 5% damage reduction per particle to your health, had a base of only 6 particles, and wasn't recastable natively. Now, it provides 5% damage reduction scaled with strength, applies to shields as well as health, has a base of 12 particles, and can be recast just 2 seconds after being initially cast, even if particles remain. With those innate values, Nova can enjoy the maximum damage reduction of 90% with just a 50% overall stat increase to either her strength or duration. Any additional stats act as a buffer against losing any particles. This is a far cry from a previous requirement of 300% duration to get the full benefit, a terribly high ask even for highly invested players. The downside of being connected to strength now is of course making negative strength builds less viable for Nullstar. While such a build isn't needed anymore, it does mean any attempts to use range at strength's expense will likely weaken any Nova needlessly. Still, overall, it is a strong change. Nullstar has also had a moderate base damage increase and deals blast damage instead of the old slash. As a damage ability on its own, Nullstar isn't particularly impressive. With a base value of 300 damage per particle, even upper star chart enemies will laugh at the attempt regardless of your strength. Nullstar can deal more damage with its augment, Neutron Star. When equipped, this adds an AoE heatwave to each particle impact, dealing a base 240 heat damage to all targets in its 8 meter range with guaranteed heat proc. The heat damage has no fall off over distance, but it is limited by line of sight. The range of both the targeting and the heat wave are connected to your range stat to increase the effect of application. Neutron Star also changes the recast of Nullstar, making it expel the remaining particles rather than a simple replenishment. All remaining particles seek enemies within twice the normal range, detonating just as they would one by one for an explosive burst. This is a direct boost to her power, providing a solid damage type and damage over time effect with multi-target results. Still, it requires specific modding to do more than just a few thousand damage per target, which I'll cover with her builds. Nova offers Nullstar to the helmet system, though other warframes are capped at 75% damage reduction instead of 90%. Nova's second ability is Antimatter Drop. When Nullstar is a defensive ability with damage options, Antimatter Drop is primarily a bomb. It'll drift lazily in the air towards your aim, turning aggressively if you look somewhere new. When it contacts an enemy or surface, it explodes. Unlike other nuke abilities, however, Antimatter Drop has almost no damage of its own. Its base damage is just 200, less even than 1 particle from Nullstar. Where it shines is it absorbs your attacks and amplifies them. Antimatter Drop will either absorb 25,000 damage, ignoring critical bonuses, or 4 shots before multi-shot, whichever happens first. This means if you use a weapon with 98 damage per shot, you'll make it absorb only 392 damage before becoming full and unable to absorb more damage. Add on 100% multi-shot and it'll absorb 784 damage before being filled. Do be aware that not only does this ignore all critical hits and status effects your weapon would deal, the damage your weapon deals to antimatter drop may be a bit more or less than your arsenal UI states. This is due to something called damage quantization, which, believe me, you do not want to think about. Just know if the number is off by up to 10%, this is why. Once antimatter drop comes into contact with a surface or enemy, it explodes. If you recast the drop, it'll speed up dramatically to slam into wherever you're aiming. This explosion deals not only the base damage, but also the absorbed damage with a hefty 8 times multiplier on top that also scales with strength. If the drop absorbed the maximum of 25,000 damage, that's 200,000 damage in an AoE with no fall off at base strength, plus the 200 from the ability itself. The explosion you can get scales incredibly well with hard hitting weapons like many shotguns to hit that full damage in as few shots as possible. My number one weapon for this will be the Kuva Heck for the sheer output it has in every shot. Do be cautious however in a team, as allied shots can charge the drop too, potentially filling it with low damage. The augment for this ability, Antimatter Absorb, enables a drop to accumulate enemy fire for damage alongside your own. Defensively, this can create a large sphere of denial, preventing attacks reaching you. Offensively, it does nothing of value. The damage applied by enemies does not appear to exceed the cap you normally face, and enemy damage is usually anemic compared to our own. As Nova's defenses are already pretty good, I would not recommend using Antimatter Absorb, as the mod slot can be put to better use elsewhere. Which brings us to Nova's Wormhole ability. With damage and tank already covered, this ability is about the simple joys of setting up a portal to somewhere else. Curiously enough, despite the in-game demonstration on the mod card showing travel time through the portal, the actual effect is instantaneous. That's probably just for understanding purposes. The portals enable the transport of players, allies, companions, enemies, and even escort candidates like the drone on the plains of Eidolon or defectors in defection missions. Most things that touch the portal immediately go through. All portals are one-way, placed slightly in front of Nova, and exiting either at the maximum range or at the first obstacle Nova was pointing at in that direction. Once placed, the portal lasts indefinitely until Nova creates a 5th portal, replacing the first, or until 4 entities have gone through the portal. 2 further things can go through the portal with special effects added. Firstly, Nova's antimatter drop can pass through portals, gaining 50% of max damage charge by doing so. This consumes a charge on the portal though. The drop can pass through multiple portals, with the second fully charging it if not already filled. The second thing that goes through the portal differently is all ranged weapon attacks, like bullets and projectiles. Weapon shots passing through the portal do not use any charges at all. Whatever goes into the portal, its momentum is conserved. Speedy thing in, speedy thing out with a matching direction. You can use this to traverse large areas quickly, fire safely around corners, or annoy your friends by ejecting them from extraction. The combination of shots passing through the portal and keeping their velocity, plus portals having infinite duration, means certain infinite punch-through weapons, notably the Nataruk, can get a little bit absurd. Warning, AFK gameplay is not permitted in Warframe. If you AFK for a significant amount of time, especially using mechanics to make the game play for you, you are putting your account at risk. Play with portals, don't let them play you. For mobility purposes, you can further enhance Wormhole with the augment Escape Velocity. On passing through the wormhole, you and allies will gain a fixed 50% speed boost for a short duration. The sole purpose here is to make moving through missions even quicker. Unlike most augments, this fits into the Exilus slot, as it is only a speed boost, not an enhancement to Nova's overall power or defense. Finally, we come to Nova's 4th ability, Molecular Prime. In the past, this was a single cast ability that affected enemies via strength in an odd way. Unlike modern slow effects which multiply the effect by strength, old Nova would subtract 70% from her strength, and that was the slow amount, up to a 75% slow. With less than 70% strength, this would speed enemies up. Now this is overhauled. The base slow has increased to 50% and does indeed multiply with strength. With the minimum possible strength of 10%, it applies a barely noticeable 5% slow to enemies, while with 150% strength, you can reach the cap of 75% slow. The slow is applied by an expanding field emanating from the position Nova casts it at. spreading out at 5 meters per second until the field dissipates. Any enemies vulnerable to slowing effects that are caught in the field, not just the leading edge of its expansion, will be affected by the slow. This includes enemies which spawn inside while the field is still expanding. Enemies under the effect of Molecular Prime take double damage from all sources, and on death, explode for a low amount of damage with a chance of blast status. Now, while negative strength no longer gives a speed up effect, Nova may instead hold cast Molecular Prime to turn the slow into a speed up effect. It applies the same value in reverse, up to a max of 75% extra speed to all enemies caught in the field. This includes enemies immune to slowing effects, allowing them to be sped up. While this makes enemies faster at attacking and maneuvering, the benefit aside from the damage of vulnerability is to enable the enemies to rush towards you quicker. If they reach you sooner, they can usually be killed sooner, allowing for faster clear times or improved loot rates. Balance the use of the speed up against the threat of the enemies around you. When you need to, switch to a slow effect such as when acolytes spawn to make them more manageable. Molecular Prime's augment, Molecular Fission, is a combo effect with Nullstar. This augment enables Nova to recharge 2 particles of Nullstar whenever an enemy under the effects of Molecular Prime dies. Not only that, enemies struck by Nullstar become afflicted with Molecular Prime, either slowed or sped up depending on whichever you last cast. In this way, Molecular Fission allows for the indefinite maintenance of Nullstar, as well as an energy efficient means of extending the Molecular Prime effect. While only individual targets receive the effect, and then only when in range to be targeted by Nullstar, this is worth it in low enemy density scenarios where energy is less easy to find. Molecular Prime's explosions have some minor odd interactions, most too niche to go into. However, one standout one is the combination effect of Molecular Prime, Xata's Whisper, and the Sobek with acid shells. I've covered the main interaction in the Sobek specific guide, but notably, Nova's Molecular Prime makes the Sobek even more effective at creating a cascade of exploding enemies, especially when paired with a Xata's Whisper subsume. Bringing this together then, Nova is a resilient, explosive, mobile frame able to control the pace of the battlefield on a whim. To utilize this, I present to you 2 major builds and 2 minor ones. The first major build is a generalist designed to work in a plethora of missions, both for holding locations and moving to the next one. The defense is in the form of Shield Tank with Adaptation, Prime Redirection, Nullstar, and Arcane Aegis, providing extremely resilient shields. Should enemies become overwhelming, slow them down to get some breathing room. Offensively, Antimatter Drop is boosted by strength and range to blast areas as you go, with endless missions supported by Molt Augmented for even more strength. If you're not facing armored enemies, drop Corrosive Projection for growing power for even more strength. Due to the neutral efficiency and Nova's passive, Equilibrium is completely sufficient for maintaining energy income to fuel her kit. I have combined this setup with 2 Archon shards for energy max, a shard for starting energy, and a shard for casting speed. Each of these can be achieved with mods, but those mods are individually overkill for Nova, when shards can do the trick. To round her off, I've added an ability duration shard, but you can use almost anything you like there, such as a Topaz shard for shields from blast. As this is an all-round generalist build, it survives and handles well, but isn't a specialist for any one ability. If you want casting power, that's where we can go for this enriched Pulsar build. Swapping to a health tank focus, we use high strength, low efficiency, Nourish subsumed over Wormhole, Arcane Vitality, and Arcane Arachne. All of this is powering Nova's Nullstar ability with the Neutron Star Augment. You see, Nullstar is weird. Unlike many other abilities which are just abilities, Nullstar is considered a type of weapon too. As a result, Nourish provides a viral bonus to both the direct hit and the heat wave, significantly increasing the damage. It also has a chance to apply viral procs with each hit. Due to Nourish scaling with strength, this gives a quadratic benefit to your strength. Arcane Arachne is a plus 150% weapon damage buff applied for 30 seconds immediately after wall latching for the briefest moment. This further increases Nullstar's damage to 2.5 times more than base. Arcane Vitality then applies 2 heat procs instead of 1 with each hit of Neutron Star, further empowering your output. Combine this all together with Molecular Prime for enemy vulnerability, and it can clear whole areas with every single recast of Nullstar. The rapid casting may not be energy efficient, but in sufficiently high enemy density, there will be enough drops for Nourish and Equilibrium to keep you well topped up. These two builds will honestly cover you for almost anything Nova needs to concern herself with. Nova does have some skin in the spy game, however. Her portals allow her to bypass laser grids and exposed sections, while her Molecular Prime can make enemies easier to sneak around, so long as they don't explode. For this then, you can use a mobile thievery setup like this. The core focus is getting about, using escape velocity and arcane consequence for movement and parkour buffs. Beating expertise keeps portals cheap to allow for rapid casting, while the strength and defensive mods are there for if stealth fails and you need to resort to explosions. For Helmith, you can either use Ivara's Quiver to provide invisibility to Nova, or Perspicacity to enable automatic hacks when cast prior to interacting with a terminal. Perspicacity works even where ciphers would not, such as during sorties. Lastly, for our new players watching, start your budget build in this direction. A mix of strength and duration gives most abilities the kick they need, while redirection and Arcane Aegis gives you plenty defense for every basic mission. A rank 0 Arcane Aegis is still 12 seconds of functional immortality when triggered, so even that is worth having. I've not gone for range here, as that means a higher risk of losing Null Star particles unintentionally. Once you're more used to managing your energy, you can swap Streamline out for Stretch to get more range for your explosions. Between all these then, you should have total control of the power in Nova's kit, obliterating enemies and controlling the mission pace precisely to your liking. While we're obliterating, I want to thank everyone who has contributed so far on the quest to conquer cancer. No long spiel from me on this, just my genuine thanks. In the first week alone, we have raised $1,500 on this channel, which is incredible. That's all from me for now, so as always, Duke Portals, Nuke Hallways, and fight well, Tenno.